Hi guys, welcome to another session. So we have almost done with Merton. We discussed about Merton's concepts and middle range theories and manifest latent function, functional alternatives, net balance. So all these have covered, and then functional paradigm, and then we discussed the theory of anomy. Now one more theory is left. That is, in fact, one of the most practical and influential concept of Merton. That's what we are going to discuss today, and that's the theory of reference group or the theory of reference group behavior. And this is one of the favorite area of UPSC. They'll ask you just that, they'll change the context. How can you use Merton's theory of reference group to explain fashion in society? I remember this question was asked when I have given and cracked this exam. So in 2015, I think, or 14 mains, this has been asked. But after that, again, they have asked, but that fashion will be changed to something else. Whatever is trending in the market or society is what they will ask you. So remember, there's a very important topic and very easy also. And this is one of Merton's middle range theory, because he proposed middle range theory. So when you get a question on middle range theory also, you'll be giving a reference to reference group and also theory of anomy. All these are middle range theory, and this was proposed in 1950 or presented in 1950 in his essay Contribution to the Theory of Reference Group Behavior. So the first time this idea appeared in Herbert Hayman's work, that's I think Archives of Psychology. Just refer the name of the book. Okay, so Robert Herbert Hayman. Not that important for you, but in case if it is a 20 marker you are getting, we need one more line to add there. It's not originally the concept of Merton, but it has appeared in Herbert Hyman's work of Archives of Psychology in 1942. But it was Merton who gave it a functional and sociological dimension. Right, we have seen this kind of scenarios before also in Marx, also dialectical materialism, dialectical idealism, Feuerbach's anthropological naturalism, and all those combinations and how it applied in sociology. Durkheim also we have seen similarly. So this is originally the work of Herbert Hymans, and even when we discussed about Verstehen, Weber, we have seen that this is originally the concept of Karl Jaspers, but it's applied in sociology by Weber. Same way, Merton have given that functional and sociological dimension. Okay, again, when we talk about theory of reference group, we'll have to talk about the functions of this, and we'll have to also discuss the dysfunction, because Merton's core idea is what talking about functions and the disintegrating influence, that's dysfunction. Even in function, you have to see intended, the manifest function and latent function, and in dysfunction, manifest and latent dysfunction, and then you have to make a comparison and find the net balance, right? So there can be reference groups, and then what are the positive function, like you want to become IAS officer, so that IAS officer group is your reference group, so you'll try to imitate like that. So there are positives, there are negatives like you may get alienated from the mainstream society. There are positives also. So we will be talking about all these in this session. So this theory was inspired by Samuel Stauffer's research, The American Soldier, in 1949, that actually studied the soldiers' attitude during World War II. And Stouffer, he found that even when the soldiers were objectively well off, perfectly fine, but many felt deprived, because what happened or what they did is they compared themselves to those with better opportunities. See, soldiers, they are paying very good and facilities and everything. I'm talking about American soldiers, especially in the backdrop of World War II. So everything was good, but when they compare it with someone else, right, then you will see they have better opportunities. So they will feel a kind of deprivation. In fact, this is a relative deprivation, right? You feel deprived because someone else is better than you. It's not because you are poor or you are originally don't have money or deprived. So here, this feeling is what you call as relative deprivation. You compare yourself with someone. You have a beautiful phone, maybe iPhone 15 Pro Max, and now the iPhone 16 Pro have came, right? So your friend have taken iPhone for 16 Pro Max. There is not much difference, but when you compare, right, you may be well off than him, but since you just bought iPhone 15 Pro Max just before 16 was introduced, maybe 1 month before, you're not buying that because there is, that there is not much change. But since he's having that one, there is a relative deprivation. When he's saying that I have 16 Pro Max, but you have only 15 Pro Max, So this is something when you're comparing. That's what I told you, the soldiers, when they compare themselves with those with better opportunities, they consider they have better opportunities, better living standards, or better family life, all those facilities. Beyond salary, there are many things that affect the human life, right? So when the soldiers compare, and that's exactly what I mean by relative deprivation, and that is what actually taken into consideration, and that's where Merton built his theory from. Like, we do not evaluate ourselves in isolation. I'm not sitting here and I'm not going to evaluate myself. How can I need a benchmark? So we evaluate ourselves in comparison with others, and that group is your reference group. Simple. So if I'm evaluating myself, I look at those other sociology teachers or those other traders in my other profession. So that's what my reference group. And especially most of the time, I select the better ones because I want to improve always. Okay, I never want to, see, you might have watched some movies in your childhood, and you might be feeling, very much fascinated with the goons and the anti-heroes, and you want to, be like one of them. And if you treat that as your reference group, that's what negative and that's the dysfunction. But when you are considering the heroes or some these good people as your reference group, that's a positive reference group, and that's functional. So we will be discussing this in detail: what's positive, what's negative, what's function, what's dysfunction, what's latent function, what's latent dysfunction, what's manifest function, what's manifest dysfunctions, and everything. So the point is, we do not evaluate ourselves in isolation. What we do is we evaluate always ourselves with comparison with others. So we need a group to evaluate. Otherwise, there is no competition, there is no comparison, right? You cannot compete with yourself. Maybe in bodybuilding, I can compete with myself. I look at the mirror and I want to improve myself for next day, but that's not the real possibility. If I want something, if I want to evaluate something, I need a comparison. I need a reference group. So that's exactly what you mean by reference group. Cool. Now, a reference group means, definition. This is again very important. You need to write that. So that's basically a group. You have a group to which an individual compare yourself or oneself in order to evaluate one's achievement, aspirations, roles, ambitions. IPS officers group. That could be a reference group. You want to wear that uniform and you want to be part of that. And you behave like that, act like that. So that's your reference group. Movie heroes, Salman Khan, Shah Rukh Khan, that Bollywood stars. That could be a reference group if you want to, if you aspire to become one among them. IAS officers group, right? So this is what you mean by reference group. That will act as standard of comparison, and that shape the way how you think, how you behave, and evaluate your success or your failure. So right now, it is very easy for you to understand the IAS officers or IPS officers, right? Because you are preparing for UPSC and you want to become one of that. So what is your reference group? Your reference group may be an IAS or IPS officer, and that's the group that you aspire to join. So what you will do is you will compare your study habits, the disciplines and values with them, like what they have done and how they have cracked. You might have seen their interviews. You try to follow them, what they have done, their daily routines, their timetable, their test series, where they took the coaching, who was his mentor, right? So you try to follow them and you try to evaluate in comparison with that person because you want to get into that group. So see, again, there is a difference between reference group and interaction group. Let me make it very clear. In fact, Merton distinguishes very clearly between these two important concepts: reference group and interaction group. So when I talk about interaction group, that's the group that you're currently part of, like your friends, your classmates, your colleagues. This is your interaction group. Reference group, the group you aspire to join or you compare yourself with. It's not necessary that you want to be like your friends or the classmates or colleagues always. It's not necessary that you aspire to become like your friends who are already part of you. You are standing here. You want to reach here. So where you stand, that's where your friends, your classmates, your colleagues. That's the interaction group. That's with whom you interact daily. This is your interaction group. This is where you want to reach. So there is a gap between where you are now and where you want to reach. This is your reference group. So this is a group that you aspire to join. So you compare yourself with this. Where you are now, this is your interaction group. Where you want to reach, that's the reference group. Cool. I hope you got the difference. So when we talk about the interaction group that basically influence your daily interactions, but not necessarily your ideals or your standards. When we talk about reference group that basically shapes your values, goals, and your self-evaluation. So you evaluate yourself, you see success, failure, and everything in the context of reference group, in comparison with reference group, right? Your classmate from your interaction group, your friends is your interaction group, your colleagues is your interaction group, but UPSC toppers, that's not your interaction group, right? That's, and the officers, who are already cracked this, and then they may be your mentors, but that's the group that you aspire to become. So your friends, your classmates, that's your interaction group. The UPSC toppers, I'm talking about your context, guys. Otherwise, I can discuss multiple reference group also, right? Now let's look at the types of reference group. There can be membership or non-membership. Merton identified two major classification that's basically based on membership and orientation. You may not be mentor, but you are kindly oriented towards them. So that's what membership and non-membership group. Membership group means a group you already belong to, like you're part of a study circle or institution, like that. So that's a membership group. You're a part of the group. I'm just talking about the types of group, okay? Now, non-membership group, that's the group you do not belong, but you aspire to join. Like the one which I've told, UPSC toppers, the civil service officers, or the elite universities where you want to go, right? So when we talk about a membership group, that need not always be your reference group. That's a kind of interaction group also. It's not necessary that it is always your reference group, but you have a reference group that's where you want to become. So once you become there, then that becomes your membership group also. Initially, it was a non-membership group. It was your reference group, but now it becomes your membership group also when you achieve that, right? So non-membership group can easily become your reference group because that's where you aspire to become. Right now, you're watching this video, you are an aspirant, but what is your membership group? Could be your friends like that. But what the group that you aspire to reach, that's your reference group. The toppers, group, that's a non-membership group. That's your reference group. But from non-membership, it can become membership once you achieve, right? Now there can be positive and negative reference group. I hope membership and non-membership is clear. Now positive and negative. See, the group whose norms and values you admire and you wish to adopt, like IAS, IPS officers, social reformers, scientists, these are positive reference group, heroes, etc. What are negative reference group? That's the group whose values you reject or you wish to avoid. Like even among the officers itself, corrupt officers. So that's the values that you basically reject. That's the negative reference group that will influence badly, like the corrupt politicians, corrupt officers, the criminal gangs, the extremist organizations, like that. So the reference group can motivate or it can warn, depending upon what actually represent for you. There can be positive, there can be negative. I hope you got this idea also. Now, there is something called as anticipatory socialization, a very important concept. This is again one of the most important contribution of Merton within this theory, that is anticipatory socialization. You anticipate and socialize. If I want to give the definition, it refers to the process in which individuals begin to adopt the norms, values, and behaviors of the group that they aspire to join even before becoming member of it. So you aspire to join this group. For example, you want to become a film star. So you act like your norms, your values, your behavior, your dressing style, your body language, everything you will change like them. So that's what anticipatory socialization. You will think that you will reach there at one point of time and you behave like that. So an IAS aspirant also you can talk, right? You will start talking like an officer or behaving like an officer, like disciplined, punctual, formal, that way. Similarly, the one which I've discussed, a student who's following fashion of Bollywood stars, right? Before they enter into that industry, because that's their reference group. So the anticipatory behavior, in fact, it's kind of functional also. There can be dysfunction as well. So it is functional because it is very smoother adjustment that when you join that group, or it actually help you to join that group faster, right? So the anticipatory behavior, according to Merton, helps in smoother adjustment when someone actually joins that group. So it's a functional aspect. It prepare you for social mobility and transition. So it will prepare you to get to that level. So it will help you to cover that distance fast where you are now and where you want to reach. That, anticipatory socialization. Now there are dysfunctions also, because Merton, being a neo-functionalist, has always identified that dysfunctional side, right? When the reference group belong to a closed system. So all these things are applicable only if it is open. But if it's a closed system like caste hierarchies or very much elite classes where the individual may not be or unable to join despite internalizing its values and everything, then what happens? Alienation from its own group, right? So even in this case also, I want to become a film star and I start behaving like that. I don't talk to common people or my friends, and I act like a film star. Then what will happen? Alienation from one's own group. So that loss of belonging. When you start doing anticipatory socialization with the other group, you'll be missing this group. And another one is failure to enter the aspirational group. If you are not able to join there, then that will affect your psychologically also. And that individual, he becomes a marginal man, like caught between two worlds, belonging to neither his group nor that group. So that's what marginal man concept, right? So alienation first from the previous group or the own group or the interaction group, and failure that will again create mental stress and other things. So for example, a lower caste individual, he's imitating the upper caste rituals like Sanskritization, but still he's not accepted, right? So there is alienation, a failure, marginal man. Or a student who's obsessed with UPSC, don't have any other options, right? No, not looking for any other jobs, giving continuous 7 attempts, and he failed repeatedly. Then what happens? He feels detached from everything else. You feel like lost it completely, right? Because after 7 years, what is left? Now you are in your 30s. Your attempts are over. Who's going to give you a job, right? So your life is gone. So that's the scenario. So you will get detached from both family, peer, and from your life itself. Now, there are some factors that are influencing the choice of reference group. Merton, in fact, suggested that selection of the reference group depends upon, I think, 5 factors. One, power and prestige, like individuals are attached to the group with higher social status or authority, like IAS officer, IPS officer, like that. Second, isolation in membership group. So if someone feel alienated in their current group, then they seek identity in a reference group. And the third one, open and closed structure. I've just now discussed that. People usually select open system as reference group, where the entry is possible. Then the fourth one, reference individuals or role models, like influential figures like the toppers, celebrities, Salman Khan, Shah Rukh Khan, social reformers. They often represent the entire reference, right? So there will be a reference individual in that group. Even if I want to become a film star, first name that comes to my mind will be Shah Rukh Khan or Salman Khan, right? Now, there is a generational difference. That's the next one. Each generation have different reference to. Earlier generation maybe idealize that government jobs, but many youth now looking for entrepreneurship and creator kind of jobs, not the government jobs. And the restrictions, salaries, and what you can make us other side, right? Now let's also look at the functional and dysfunctional aspect. So there are positive reference group. We need to discuss about negative reference group, anticipatory socialization, and the changing reference group. These are the 4 dimensions I have to cover here. Positive reference group, you got it right. That encourage progress, self-improvement, etc. Like here, positive reference group, you want to become a film star, you want to become an IAS officer. So that will encourage progress. You want to become rich, that elite category. So that will help you to self-improve. So here, what is a dysfunctional element that create unrealistic pressure? So even within positive reference group, this encourage this, but hidden dysfunction is there, unrealistic pressure in your side. So you are forced to study for 18, 20 hours, or you're forced to work without sleep if you want to become rich or do such kind of business, right? That's a negative aspect. And negative reference group, that will help you to avoid the deviant behavior. I told you, corrupt politicians, terrorists, etc. So those acts you will not do. That will help you to avoid that deviant behavior, but that may reinforce the prejudice. That's the negative aspect. And then Anticipatory socialization, I've told you already, you start imitating the behaviors, you start following the behaviors of that reference group. So that's actually the function is the smooth transition into desired group. What is the dysfunction? What if you cannot reach there? Then alienation or marginal man. That's the dysfunction of anticipatory socialization. And changing reference group that reflects that social mobility and the open system and the dysfunction that may create identity confusion also. Right. Now, if you ask me what are the applications in sociology, they have asked multiple times, you can talk about fashion, you can talk about social media and all those. Sanskritization, like lower caste imitate the upper caste. What's their reference group? It's the upper caste. That's a classical example of reference group behavior. Fashion and lifestyle studies that explain how, people copy celebrities. Anticipatory socialization, the way you build your muscles like Salman, or the way you dress like Shah Rukh, right? So that's what I mean by anticipatory socialization. And social mobility, that's nothing but the aspiration for upward movement that's often guided by the reference group. Relative deprivation, even materially well-off people, they may feel deprived if their reference group is richer than them. You are rich, but your reference group is richer than you feel deprived because you are here now, they are there. That's your reference group. So that explains social frustration and protest also. And then organizational behavior. See, employees, they model themselves after their leaders or high performing team. So these are things which in detail we discussed in the class. Apart from that, there are a few criticisms we covered, like overemphasis on comparison. Not all behavior is based on imitation or aspiration, right? And then the neglect of power relation. See, it doesn't address the structural barriers that prevent the group mobility. So that power relation, that Marxian criticisms you can write. Psychological strain, the constant comparison that may cause frustration and identity crisis. And then the cultural relativity. See, the reference group that we talk about that may differ across societies and it may overlap widely. So that is making the concept complex and multi when it comes to societies like India, multicultural context, right? So again, this is very important. So this is basically explaining that aspirational culture among the Indian youth, UPSC, IIT, startups, influencers, right? You can explain all these with that and it connect the social media behavior. I think last year this was a question following lifestyles of celebrities and as reference group. It you can use in your paper too also, right? When you're discussing the caste mobility, when you talk about social change, when you talk about modernization, when you talk about Sanskritization. So the same concept is applied. And you can also apply this, in fact, in your GS4 ethics to explain role models, anticipatory moral behavior, and influence of the peer group, etc. So just remember a few of the key terms that I've discussed. What do you mean by reference group? That's the standard of comparison for self-evaluation. Remember membership and non-membership group. Remember positive and negative reference group. Remember the word anticipatory socialization. Marginal man has a dysfunction of anticipatory socialization. Relative deprivation, that's the deprivation in comparison to well-off people than you. It's not necessary that you are bad, but you are really good, but even more good people are there in terms of money, in terms of prestige, in terms of power. So you feel relatively deprived. Cool. A minister may feel relatively deprived in comparison with chief minister. A chief minister may feel relatively deprived in terms of power when he compares himself with a prime minister, right? An Indian prime minister may feel relatively deprived with US president in terms of power. So this is all relative deprivation. So they can ask you questions, define and distinguish between membership group and reference group, right? So there is a very clear difference. Interaction group and reference group. What is anticipatory socialization? Discuss the functions and dysfunction. How can the concept of reference group explain fashion in society, lifestyle behavior in modern society like that? Or they can directly ask you explain Sanskritization as a form of reference group behavior in your paper one also. Cool. So guys, this theory, reference group theories beautifully connect individual motivation with social structure as we have seen in Merton previously also. And that shows that our ambitions, your frustrations and identity are not formed in isolation, right? They're shaped by the groups that we admire, the group that we imitate, and we measure ourselves against that particular group. And that's your reference. So our goals, our envy, and even our sense of achievement, everything depend on the mirror of others. Your achievement, you are basically comparing with others. Your envy, that's also because of others. Your goals, that is also in connection with others. So everything depending upon the mirror of others. And that's what make this theory not only sociologically rich, but deeply human also. So that's about this session. Thank you so much. And in case if you're looking for mentorship on sociology, the sociology classes, complete course, or test series, get in touch with us. We'll see you there.